Hi there, it's Ben Housel. In this quick video, I'm going to show you how to share a selection of a timeline when you're exporting from Final Cut Pro 10. So essentially there's a couple of different ways of doing this. We're going to look at both of them. One is to select an area of the timeline using the range selection tool and then export. And the other is to wrap things up into a compound clip, and then you can make selections or remove selections from your original edit. So I have an edit, a video tutorial here that we'll use as an example. And essentially what we're going to do is make a couple of different selections on the timeline and then look at how we can export those out. So the first is using the range tool. So we're going to come to our tools on the left hand side here, come to our range selection tool, and then on the main storyline, so this darker grey area in Final Cut Pro 10, we can pull across a number of different clips, and that will be the range that we'll then export. It will also export anything that's on connected clips above that main storyline. So if we go ahead, you can see we've got a 47-second selection of the 7-minute and 47-second video that we've got here. So if we click share and master file, we'll come to the settings, leave them all as is, and then we'll just export that out to the desktop. We'll call this range selection export. So we should have a 47-second export once we're completed, and we'll have a look at that in a second. The other way that I've used to export things out in the past is to wrap things up into a compound clip. So I'm going to come up to my library here. I'm going to select the project that I'm working on, and then I'm going to right click and duplicate this project. And I'll just call this the name of the project and then trimmed for export, so we know that we're not working on the main timeline. So we'll double click on this sequence, and I duplicated it because I don't want to edit anything in my previous edit, so I want to kind of keep that all intact. So here we're going to select everything. So Command and A or Edit and Select All will select everything on the timeline, and then we can go to File, New and Compound Clip, and we'll just leave the compound clip name the same for this example. And you can see in my library I have the new compound clip up there. Now the great thing about this, if I only want to partially export different parts of the timeline, or perhaps I wanted to do a speeded up version of my tutorial, then we can make a selection and export that out. So I'm going to grab the range selection tool again from up here, and we'll just grab some sections. So we're going to delete these sections this time, not export them. So I'm going to just delete a few different sections, and hopefully what we're doing here makes sense. But essentially we're cutting out bits of our original edit, so we end up with a shorter version of that edit. We could also select areas of that compound clip and speed them up or slow them down. And essentially, because we're not working on that original timeline, our original project, we can kind of mess this up and play around with it and see what we get. And I use this quite a lot when I want to promote particular parts of my different tutorials. I'll kind of cut out the bits that don't illustrate what's happening in the tutorial and then show the kind of juicy bits in the sped up or trimmed down edit, so that I can post it to Instagram or something like that in a shorter format. So we'll just shorten this down a little bit more, so we end up with a very short clip. But essentially you should be able to see kind of what's going on here. We're just trimming down massively this original clip, and the final timeline that we have there from our original edit is 1 minute and 32 seconds. So we've trimmed it down from over 7 minutes to a very short time. And now if we come to share, master file, we're going to just leave all those settings as is, and we'll call this compound clip export. So the difference here really being that we're making selections that we want to remove from our timeline so that we can cut it right down. So this is useful if you want to turn a 5-minute edit into a 30-second edit, or if you have bits of that original video that won't be useful in your trimmed down version. So if we come up to the background tasks window here, you can see these videos are sharing. Once they're shared, we'll just have a quick look at the trimmed down versions. But essentially that's it. We can use the range selection tool to select an area of the timeline, or we can make a duplicate of our original project, and then by turning everything into a compound clip, we can very quickly trim down that original sequence into a shorter form or a shorter version. So as this is exporting, I'd just like to mention my new introduction to Final Cut Pro on YouTube, and I'll leave a link to that below. And if you're looking for a more in-depth introduction into Final Cut Pro, then I'll leave a link to my Skillshare class, which runs through right from the top how to open Final Cut Pro for the first time. It's really easy to follow. It's great for beginners learning Final Cut Pro. And now that we're done exporting, we'll jump to the desktop and we'll have a look here. We'll close the background tasks window. So you can see I'm going to tap the spacebar here to show a preview, and here we have this shorter 1 minute and 32 second version of that 7-minute edit. And if we hold down the spacebar again on the range selection clip that we exported, you can see we have that 47-second exported clip. So using the range selection tool to make selections or turning things into a compound clip and then cutting things down radically will help you to export a shortened selection of your main timeline that you've been editing on. And I hope that's been useful. And if you have any questions about Final Cut Pro 10, then please don't hesitate to leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial.